Welcome everybody once again to this Thinking Thursdays research seminar. We have with us today Mr. Eldo Matthews, who is the Deputy Advisor at the Unit for International Corporations, National Institute of Education Planning and Administration, New Delhi. Mr. Matthews has been working in the field of international higher education for a long time now. And at the Unit for International Cooperation, he's primarily responsible for research related to bilateral cooperation through academic partnerships. Prior to this appointment, Eldo worked as the head of internationalizing higher education with the British Council in South India. And he has also worked as full-time consultant with India's Ministry of Human Resource and Development, National Higher Education Commission, Education Division of the former National Planning Commission of India, and has also worked as senior researcher with US-based management consulting firm Sannam S4. Eldo started his career as a research officer with the Kerala State Higher Education Council after obtaining his research degree from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Eldo's research papers and articles, single and co-authored papers, had appeared in International Higher Education, Economic and Political Weekly, Times Higher Education, Change, the Magazine of Higher Learning, the Hindu Daily, the World View of Inside Higher Ed, Forum, etc. Currently, he's involved in an international project on student mobility and recruitment in non-English speaking countries, a comparative analysis of national policies for attracting international students, supported by the Institute of Education of the Higher School of Economics in Moscow and the Center for International Higher Education at Boston College. Today, Eldo is going to talk about mutual recognition of academic qualifications, policy implications, trade-offs, and the way forward. Over to you, Eldo, and we are really looking forward to hear from you and learn more about this very important topic, which I think now is extremely relevant, particularly in the context of NEP 2020 and its focus on internationalization of higher education. Over to you, Eldo.
Thank you so much, Mausami. Thank you for inviting me to this seminar to share my thoughts, and thanks to you all for attending this seminar. As you can see on the screen, our topic today is the major implications of mutual recognition of academic qualifications in the Indian context. This is an important area, but sadly not received much attention because most of the discussions in India on internationalization are focused on global rankings, research universities, world-class universities, etc., etc. But mutual recognition is an important component for the success of all the international initiatives, internationalization initiatives that have been happening in the country in the past decade. What I have prepared is divided into 4 parts. In the first part, I will talk about the importance of mutual recognition of qualifications. I also plan to cover the current policies of equivalence and recognition in India. In the second part, the role of UNESCO and the evolution of bilateral, regional, and global agreements. And the third part is about the key benefits and key steps need to be taken to ensure successful implementation of the mutual recognition agreements. And finally, the key challenges. After my talk, there will be time for discussion. And of course, please interrupt me if you have any questions. So let me start with the basic principle of mutual recognition. Within education also, there are many similarities with the trade agreements and the mutual recognition in the trade agreements, because you can see some of the core principles of mutual recognition in education, even in the GATS recommendations also. Because mutual recognition is based on the principle of equivalence, where the host country's regulatory goal is addressed by home country regulation, and the host country should accept the home country's regulation as equivalent. That's the core principle. For instance, if India is entering into a mutual recognition agreement with France in education, both countries at the government level and at the stakeholder level. For instance, India's University Grants Commission or India's Association of Indian Universities or Indian universities for that matter. The governments and the other institutions have to recognize the similar bodies, the similar equalization process granted by the educational institutions in the other country. That is the core principle of mutual recognition. Mutual recognition refers to both the recognition of academic qualification and the recognition of professional qualifications. But in my presentation, I'll be focusing only on the academic part of the mutual recognition, because professional qualifications, I'm sure that some of you may be aware of the role of Washington Accord principles and also the countries that are involved in this process and how the Indian engineering graduates are benefiting from the professional recognition agreements. But in my presentation, I'll be focusing only on the academic qualifications. That includes curricula and degrees, mainly academic purposes that allow students to further study or to use a foreign title in India. Because professional qualification refers to the decision concerning the evaluation of credentials to practice a profession. I already mentioned about engineering, but also the LLB, or even the medicine related, and all these come under professional qualifications. So let me move on to the key reasons for the recent demand for mutual recognition agreements. In recent times, a number of factors, increasing economic globalization, reductions in transportation and communication cost, significant migration flows, increasingly international labor market for the highly skilled, have led to a growing demand for greater recognition of foreign qualifications. The range of groups with an interest in the recognition of foreign qualifications is also expanding. This is not only limited to universities, because assessing whether students should be accepted for further study, employers, professional associations and licensing bodies, as well as migration authorities are also increasingly requiring information on the recognition of foreign qualifications. 2 years ago, India had signed agreements on mutual recognition of qualifications with France and Morocco. First time India entered into a mutual recognition in education agreement with foreign countries. That happened in during 2018-19 period. Just 3 months ago, during the visit of UK's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab to India, both countries had agreed to set up a joint task force to work towards the long-standing demand of mutual recognition of academic qualifications. I'm sure that those who have passed out of UK universities, especially those who have taken master's degree from UK universities, are facing challenges in India, because the UK master's degree is 1-year program, and Indian authorities do not recognize the UK master's degrees. And after this meeting, because UK has been pushing for long for this mutual recognition, but India has also been demanding a kind of similar recognition from UK, especially in the school sector. Because after this meeting, India's Minister for Education had said that setting up of a joint task force would not only expedite the process for achieving mutual recognition of academic qualification, but would also support India's agenda for internationalization of higher education. Because this is an important component of internationalization of higher education. I will come to that later, especially in the context of Study in India program and other similar initiatives, research collaborations, etc., etc. Now let us move to the importance of agreements on mutual recognition of qualifications. As you all know, most countries operate education systems within the unique culture and traditions. For instance, India has British legacy, and the structural level, we have a highly stratified higher education system. And now private sector is dominating the Indian higher education system in terms of quality. There are many contradictions that have been already witnessing in the Indian higher education system. The degrees awarded by institutions in one country need not necessarily be recognized in another country. Even in India, some of the degrees awarded by public universities, even the public universities are not recognized by some of the state public service commission for jobs. And at the global level, this restricts cross-border mobility of individuals for purposes of education and employment, because this is very important, because it's not only focused on education or further study, because this affects employment opportunities also, because in an era of international division of labor, especially the the increasing role of multinational corporations, they are looking for skills with that have a important value in the global market, and the mutual recognition of academic qualifications may be able to uh, facilitate in setting up such a compatible structure across the world. Students seek to acquire foreign qualifications by studying abroad, undertaking distance education, or attending the branch campuses, etc., etc. These are all happening as a result of the non-recognition of foreign degrees in the country. But again, there is a contradiction, because the lack of recognition of foreign qualifications in the home country, for instance, if India is not approving the degree acquired by a student from China or Kazakhstan, especially the medical degrees, again, they are also facing a lot of issues, because this is not only affecting the further studies, even because for getting a job, and all these are all major issues. And that's why the United Nations conference on concerning the higher education, this recognition convention that happened in 2019, addressed these issues and advised all the countries to enter into an agreement. But that agreement, because it has already been adopted, but countries like India has not ratified that convention. Students' options for undertaking further study abroad are limited if their basic home country qualifications are not recognized by the foreign institution for the purpose of enrolling in higher education. Because again, an MBBS degree from India is an example, because an Indian student passing out with an Indian MBBS degree may not be able to practice the profession in countries like, especially in European countries and Australia, etc., etc. So these are some of the influencing factors. I have listed out three major factors, because the first one is mobility. More than 5.3 million students are studying outside their home country. Even from India, the outbound mobility is, according to the latest UNESCO statistics, it's 375,055 Indian students studying outside India. And the third most important factor is the substantial increase in the number of international students coming to India in the last decade. For instance, while only around 27,000 international students were enrolled in Indian universities and colleges during 2010-11 academic year, this number increased to more than 47,000 during 2018-19 academic year. This trend is likely to grow because the new strategies of the Indian government, such as Study in India, values the export potential of domestic higher education sector, along with important role as a soft power tool. The recently approved, the recently announced national education policy also recommends for promoting India as a study destination and providing greater mobility to students in India who may wish to study and transfer credits, because it's not only about attracting students to in India, because the National Higher Education Policy also recommends for credit transfer arrangements with foreign universities, so that even the foreign students can also come to India and acquire credit from Indian universities, so that they can take them back to their home country. If there is a mutual recognition agreement in place, it would be easy for even for the foreign students also, for all the parties. Many other international factors have been forming the backdrop. And the most important one, of course, it is that I already mentioned about that, the 2019 Global Convention on the Recognition of Qualifications Concerning Higher Education of the UNESCO. This was adopted in the 14th session of the UNESCO General Conference, because UNESCO has a major role, because after its establishment in 1945, education has been used by UNESCO for intercultural cooperation. And the latest in the string of UNESCO initiatives is this global convention. And India, not only the global convention, because regional conventions are also there. And all these conventions have been recommending for mutual recognition of qualifications, and the member countries for recommending the member countries for adopting this UNESCO recommendations regarding this area. Existing mechanism in India, because currently equivalence of foreign qualifications in India is granted by Association of Indian Universities. The evaluation of Association of Indian Universities for responsible for carrying out comparisons and other necessary actions to support the validity of foreign programs and to issue equivalence certificate. But the existing mechanism, though the Association of Indian Universities is awarding the equivalence certificate, it is awarded by, it's based on certain parameters, but they are not considering, the Association of Indian Universities is not considering the level descriptors or the actual student kind of the transcript or anything, the contents of the curriculum of the foreign universities or anything like that, because AU only considers the degree if it is awarded by a university which is recognized and accredited in the country where it is located. The degree should be an outcome of a full-time regular program. And of course, it considers the duration of the program. It should be same as prescribed in India. That's why the UK master's degrees are not approved in India. And also the minimum eligibility requirement for admission. That should be same in both the countries. Suppose if a student from India is applying for an equivalence for a degree obtained from US, then the eligibility criteria for the US degree should be same as that of India. These are some of the major criteria adopted by Association of Indian Universities for granting equivalence certificate. But at the same time, Association of Indian Universities currently does not have the mandate to process applications for equivalence for professional degrees awarded by foreign universities, especially medicine, pharmacy, law, architecture, etc. Because they are under the purview of respective professional council in the country, like Pharmacy Council of India and similar other councils. And also, Association of Indian Universities is not mandated in determining the parity between different disciplines and qualifications. That's all I want to say about the significance of mutual recognition of qualifications and the existing mechanisms for equivalence and recognition in India. So let me turn to the role of UNESCO, because as we discussed, because UNESCO has a major role, because UNESCO has been using education as a tool for promoting intercultural cooperation and also facilitating partnership between different countries. Higher education has an important role in this process. In the 1970s and 80s, UNESCO facilitated the development of normative instruments for regulating recognition of qualifications at the regional level. In the Asia-Pacific Regional Convention on the Recognition of Studies, Diplomas, and Degrees in Higher Education, even in the 80s, the regional convention was adopted in 1983 and which was entered into force in 1985. That is known as the Bangkok Convention. The next major initiative was the Asia-Pacific Regional Convention of UNESCO on the recognition of qualifications, happened in 2011. That is known as Tokyo Convention. The Tokyo Convention laid down the basic principle to mobility and internationalization in the Asia-Pacific through recognition of qualifications. And the adoption of Global Convention of Recognition of Qualifications in the 40th session of the UNESCO General Conference held in 2019, again facilitated various countries towards dismantling their various barriers that hinder the processes for recognition of qualifications globally. There is another major convention, because this is not, of course, this is about the mutual recognition, but not related to Asia. But it's about the European higher education system, the Lisbon Convention. I would say that the Lisbon Convention is the most important among the UNESCO initiatives, because even in the 80s, the Lisbon Convention finally led to the creation of European higher education area and the Bologna process. More than 48 countries are collaborating with this European higher education area project, which has led to the evolution of compatible higher education structure across the European countries. Of course, this is not leading to any automatic recognition processes, but it has created a new framework for developing a quality assurance mechanism and also assessing the higher education system across the European countries and also other partner countries. Okay, let me now move on to the key benefits of mutual recognition agreements. The major advantage is that agreements on mutual recognition of higher education would provide a legal framework for the recognition of qualifications between the partner countries. It will facilitate inbound student mobility because the qualification awarded by the competent authority from the partner countries would be valid for higher studies in recognized Indian institution. And second is about the recognition for the qualifications issued by Indian institutions in the partner countries. It will put into place universal principles at the national level, and it will, of course, help to simplify comparison between Indian qualifications and that of the partner countries. It will ensure greater transparency of the quality assurance mechanisms in different countries. And the most important, especially in the during the international division of labor, it will enable qualified applicants to seek employment opportunities in the partner countries. Not only in the partner countries, when multinational corporations, when they set up their offices or their units in countries like India, it would be easier for them to absorb the degrees acquired by graduates from the approved universities. Even now, many foreign companies prefer degrees obtained by from their home universities rather than the Indian universities. And most of the foreign universities facilitate the recruitment process through on-campus recruitment or other modalities through alumni associations, this kind of recruitment process in countries like in India, because they prefer students who have passed out of the universities located in their countries where the foreign companies are located. Yeah, these are some of the steps to ensure successful implementation. Because the successful implementation is determined by the scope and the extent of commitments agreed upon by the parties. By parties, I mean the countries and the various stakeholders to the agreement, and therefore the implementation process requires a considerable degree of cooperation between the participating countries. The most important aspect of the process would be to ensure that these countries have certain competent institutions. The most important of these two institutions are Authority for Recognition and Assessment of Qualifications and a National Information Center. And also there should be a national higher education qualifications framework. That's the important practice that should be developed by the participating country. India is already in the process of developing a national higher education qualification framework. We could see all these in the context of internationalization of higher education, and the countries urged to enter into more similar kind of mutual recognition of agreements with partner countries. Now, I would like to discuss in more depth about the role of these two bodies. I mean, the Authority for Recognition of Assessment of Qualifications and the National Information Center in this process. Because the future policy orientation of the government should be guided by the principle that a student qualifying for access to higher education in one country generally will qualify for higher education and studies when moving to another country, unless there are substantial differences between access requirements in the two countries. Because this is the core principle, because you cannot discriminate. You cannot discriminate a student coming to, for instance, from the Indian context. If a student from a partner country is applying for a program in an Indian university, you cannot deny admission, because if that student satisfies certain criteria which is already prescribed in this agreement, Indian institutions cannot deny admission to this student. Similarly, because the basic principle is a student qualifying for access to higher education in one country generally will qualify for higher education studies when moving to another country. It is in this context that the proposed Authority for Recognition and Assessment of Qualifications assumes significance, because this authority has to demonstrate the difference, if there is any difference. Otherwise, no need for demonstrating the difference with the qualifications obtained from the foreign institutions. And also, this Authority for Recognition and Assessment of Qualification has to recognize the qualification in the partner country. And the outcome of this process should make it easier for the holders of foreign qualifications to pursue studies in the partner country. The second body to ensure successful implementation of the agreement is National Information Center. Because these agreements require a considerable degree of cooperation in terms of analysis of the respective parties' regulatory regimes. Because a detailed and continuous information exchange would be crucial for the recognition process envisioned in the agreements. The National Information Center will be established in the country for facilitating this process. Because especially for countries like in India, because we have variety of higher education institutions with different size, roles, and missions. And currently, there is no mechanism at the national level which could provide detailed information about individual institutions, programs, learning outcomes, quality, etc. Because if a foreign institution or if a foreign student want to have some information about the Indian institutions, their mission or the curricula, their objectives, they could approach this National Information Center, and through the National Information Center located either in their country or in India to have this information. That's why this body's role is very crucial. This National Information Center should work in close cooperation with the national and international stakeholders in the partner countries to provide accurate information on the higher education systems, qualifications, quality assurance, and qualification framework to different stakeholders. And finally, there should be a national higher education qualifications framework. India is in the process of developing a national higher education framework, and I'm sure that some of the prominent universities in India have already developed a higher education qualification framework by giving more importance to the learning outcomes. Because this tool is important to promote comparability and compatibility between different institutions and different systems under the new framework. Skills and learning outcomes would be more important than the duration of the programs and mode of acquiring it. The National Higher Education Qualification Framework with level descriptors should provide a clear indication of the learning outcomes of the qualifications offered by institutions at various levels. I would like to end by emphasizing the main challenges. The main challenge is the complex comparison between frameworks established to meet different sets of cultural, social, and economic circumstances in different countries. Because it would be very difficult to compare the education systems of different countries. That's why even after ratifying the Regional Convention of UNESCO or the Global Convention of UNESCO, it is up to the national governments to decide whether it would be feasible to enter into a bilateral mutual recognition agreement with a particular country. Because these challenges are the main reason, because undervaluation of the qualifications, because our country may not consider the degrees of some other countries as important, and even the Indian degrees are not considered relevant, maybe by some other countries. And also, certain countries find it very difficult to gather information about the diverse institutions in India. Similarly, even if you check the website of institutions located in many countries, you won't be able to gather information. And maybe language is a major hurdle, because the websites of many institutions are in different language, for difficult to access for researchers and policymakers to access from countries like India. Lack of accurate information on the evaluation of different qualifications in many countries. And of course, differences in the structure of higher education system, especially about the institutions that are part of the non-university higher education sector, and language of instruction, of course. Gathering and providing information on credit mobility and partial studies, because during credit transfer arrangements and also partial studies arrangements in many countries, it would be difficult to gather information. And recognition of professional and vocational programs offered by institutions. These are some of the major challenges. These are the major challenges. There are many other challenges, but these are some of the major challenges that prevent many countries to enter into mutual recognition of agreements, bilateral mutual recognition agreements. Therefore, the successful implementation of the mutual recognition of agreements would depend upon constant dialogue and exchange of information between the partner countries, because this dialogue process is very critical, because different countries are entering into agreements, and only through a dialogue process and exchange of information, the objectives of the mutual recognition agreements would be met. Objectives of the mutual recognition of agreements could be achieved by the partner countries. And this is a lengthy process. Of course, organizations like UNESCO has an important role to play in the whole process. Well, I have covered the points I wanted to present today. I would be interested to hear your comments, questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Eldo, for this talk, and I'm sure this has, triggered our thought process. Many of our colleagues and students were here who are specifically now working on different aspects of NEP 2020, which has a major focus on internationalization. I personally have some questions to ask you, but before I would ask question myself, I would request my colleagues. I can see several of them here, not just Satyana. There's Deepak, Prerna, Sandal, Raju. Um, if anybody has any question to ask Eldo at this stage, based on his presentation.
There is a question from Prerna. So
Yeah,
I was wondering whether I should. I would like to ask also a question, but she asked first, so maybe it will
Okay, okay, yes, yes. I think Prerna has typed it in the chat. Let me see what she has typed. Prerna is saying many international degrees names are not widely understood in India. For example, a master's in public policy is often confused with being a master's in public administration in India. What do you have to say about this, Elder?
Yeah, even not only the international degrees, even some of the degrees offered by Indian universities in environmental sciences are not approved by some of the state public service commission. In this case, if a foreign university grants a public policy or public administration degree, and the responsibility for granting the equivalence is upon the Association of Indian Universities. What they do is they just compare the eligibility requirement for that particular course and also the duration of the program, and they provide equivalence for that particular course only. If you're obtaining a public policy course from a UK institution or even from France, they give equivalence degree for that particular degree because they just evaluate the eligibility requirements, duration, and also the accreditation of that particular institution located in the foreign country. And with that certificate, of course, you can apply for further education or employment in India. But it's up to the employer and the higher education institution in India to decide on whether to give a job or whether to provide admission for higher studies. Because Association of Indian Universities is currently responsible for giving equivalence, and for further education, individual institutions, and for job, of course, employees have a critical role.
Thank you, Eldo. I now have Tatiana and then Deepak. Tatiana, you go ahead.
Yes, this is not a question. This is rather a comment from my personal experience, because I was studying in Russia. And at that time, when I was studying, still the system was very much the Soviet one. And at that time, we had not joined the Bologna process, and we had more very much indigenous education system, whereby I was studying for 5 years, and as a result, I just received diploma. After 5 years of studying, I received diploma, which had a completely different meaning in many other countries in the world. And you know, in our context, it was very prestigious document, whereas outside Russia, it was not perceived as such. So again, it underlines the importance of mutual recognition and just trying to reach a level of uniformity. So of course now the situation changed, and we also have the bachelor degrees and master degrees. So these attempts have been made, of course, but at those times, just like you can imagine, I received diploma. I was very, very happy about that, but now there is nothing to be boast of, because this is just, yeah. So, and also I would like to mention that PhD, we also had our indigenous PhD, and it used to be called like candidate of physical science, candidate of mathematical science. So that was purely indigenous degree, which could be hardly recognized outside Russia, right? What kind of candidate you are. And yeah, so that used to cause lots of confusions. But then, like I mentioned, attempts were made, and now we are more or less in line with many other countries around the globe. This is one point I would like to mention. And then another one, it is from my experience already in India during my time as a PhD scholar. So I was an ICCR scholarship recipient, and I'm wondering, there were so many other ICCR scholars also from different countries of the world, mainly from developing countries. So I'm just wondering now, after listen to your wonderful talk presentation, I'm just wondering whether all of the students from Mali, from Chad, from Afghanistan, from Mauritius, whether Kenya, whatever, whether they whether their countries of origin had mutual recognition with India. You see what I mean? So yeah, so, and like, for example, I used to conduct lots of interviews among international students in India, particularly in Kerala. And during one of the interviews, one student from Kenya told me one of the incentives for me to choose India as a host country was that in Kenya, to get a master degree, it would take 4 years, but in India, it takes only 2 years. So that was one of incentives why I chose India in the first place. Yeah, and so that means that upon receiving this master degree, 2-year master degree in India, then the same students came back to Kenya, and that document was successfully recognized. This is the assumptions we can make. So yeah, so I just created long speech, but I just would like to share my experiences regarding the degrees and qualifications, academic qualifications.
Yeah, I will first respond to your question about mutual recognition between African countries. Currently, India doesn't have any mutual recognition agreement with African countries. And these students, of course, they prefer to study in India because Indian degrees are approved in their home countries. That is because India does not have MRI agreements with African countries. Currently, India has mutual recognition agreements with only 2 countries, France and Morocco. And of course, Morocco is it's a North African country, but it's not like Kenya or Mali or countries like which you mentioned, because Morocco's higher education system is influenced a lot by the French system too. And India also is in agreement with the French system. But the PhD which you mentioned, the 5-year PhD and the diploma programs in Russia, the same is applicable in the case of French higher education system also. But in all these cases, a national information center can resolve these kind of issues. Because if you look at the European higher education area also, if you obtain a degree from a European higher education area university, you will get a diploma supplement along with your transcript, so that you can show this supplement to any institution or the employer about the curriculum or the modules you have followed in that particular country. But of course, in many cases, language is an issue. But National Information Center and the agreement between different countries uh, uh, to solve these issues would certainly pave the way for uh, more understanding between the participating countries and the institutions. And regarding the PhD program, of course, that is also a major issue because in many countries now offers this one-year PhD program. Many universities offers one-year PhD program for professionals. That's not approved, not only in India, in many countries. But these are big challenges, of course. And this kind of, because quality assurance framework and also the transparency between the institutions and the countries, these are very critical. Even after signing the mutual recognition agreements, all partner countries, those countries that enter into agreement, have to follow these basic principles. And only by sharing information, only by following a transparent education network. For instance, even for European Higher Education Area, they have developed various kind of knowledge sharing networks. Only through a knowledge sharing network or through portals only can resolve these kind of major issues. Yeah.
Thank you, Eldo. Once again,
Thank you, sir.
we'll move to my colleague Deepak Vaughan. I can see his hand is up for a long time. Deepak, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hello. Hi, Aldo. Thank you for your talk. I think for me, this is all new. I did not know about the MRAs. I did not know about all the troubles that are there. In fact, I have been part of an institution where this kind of soup of degrees is served, which is like IIMs, which do not give MBA. Before the IIM Act, obviously, like it's a very recent phenomena, and the PG diploma in management, and I received that, and I was the first batch where I received PhD. Otherwise, it was fellow in management, and obviously, no one would have an idea what a fellow in management even means. And in fact, even now, like as you were just mentioning, the kind of difficulties you are mentioning in terms of international context, even within Indian context, IIMs have now EPGP, which is like for executive PGP program, or the fight over the executive 1-year MBA and the UGC note recognizing it. It's a crazy issue that even within India, we are not able to resolve these issues quickly. How do we expect these things to settle anytime soon in the international context? That's going to be a long process probably. I have a question there. You made a comment regarding the companies uh, that they prefer hiring students from international, say home campuses. Kind of if they would prefer students who have qualified from their own country. Do you think like these MRAs, it is because of the recognition of degree? In my understanding, it would not be the recognition of degree, because the companies definitely, or at least the globally recognized programs like engineering within India or IITs within India, they're well recognized. Now, why would a company prefer a candidate just because it is home country? Do you think MRAs will change this situation, where companies, especially the big multinational companies, they prefer highly reputed campuses as opposed to, say, hiring candidates from other countries? Is it because of the recognition issue?
This is not only because of recognition issue, because uh, if you analyze the pattern of the hiring process of many multinational corporations operating in India, for instance, Siemens, I know some of the recent initiative for Siemens, they have collaborations with Indian institutions. so that the Indian institutions could integrate some of their requirements into the curricula. And because they are looking for some particular curricula, and if the Indian institutions are not able to provide that, it would be difficult for them to hire students coming out of that particular institution. They can save time if they hire students with a particular degree from a foreign institution. That is only one aspect, of course. And I mentioned about the employees prefer foreign qualifications because there are other issues also. For instance, this Alumni Association of many foreign universities, they have established contact with these foreign companies. For instance, UK universities have tie-up with UK-based companies in India, because earlier a student passing out of an Indian student passing out of UK universities couldn't look for a post study job because there are limitations. And what they do is, because it's a major hurdle for the UK universities to attract Indian students, because majority of the Indian students started going to countries like Canada, Australia, and even to Germany. And what in this case, what they did was they tied up with UK-based companies operating in India, and started connecting their graduates to the UK-based companies in India, so that they can give some assurance, because it's not a job assurance or anything. At least one or two campus interviews they can facilitate. And this is, of course, it's related to the curriculum and all, and of course certain soft skills acquired by the Indian students from UK universities. And if Indian universities could offer a certain curriculum that is meeting their expectations, like I mentioned the Siemens story. Not only Siemens, there are many foreign companies are involved in this kind of partnership with the Indian institutions. That's where they could save a lot of time for training and other requirements for so that they can not only save time, they can other areas also they can address by recruiting a fresher into the company. And that is one thing. So regarding the PhD program of IIMs, and of course this fellow program in management, it is little confusing to many, but same is the case with students coming out of Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, because once I interviewed a few ISB students about, because they were not concerned about the validity of the programs in India, because even while interviewing the faculty members of ISB Hyderabad also say that they are not at all concerned about Indian government jobs or anything, because if they have partnership with foreign institutions and if the foreign companies are willing to take them, same is the case, of course, with the Indian Institute of Management also, because IIM graduates have a lot of opportunities. Even the fellow program in management graduates can easily get into non-governmental organization, because that's why they are not concerned about getting a job provided by Public Service Commission or the public sector undertakings. That is why there are takeaways for the programs offered by these kind of institutions. I feel so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The issue is like, as you rightly pointed out about ISB, same with the IIMs, that I've talked to seniors and they said that no, while they apply to foreign universities now, PhDs are everywhere, so everybody knows that okay, the title is different but the degree is the same. But now say with IIM Act, most of the institutions have all the IIMs have moved to PhDs, but now say institutes like MDI or ISB or SPGen, they remain in this kind of a muddle. Probably there needs to be some way out of this. That kind of thing needs to be there. Thank you for
Yeah,
your
because of course what you said is absolutely right, because our system is very complex, different kinds of institutions with degrees, diplomas, and all. That is one of the main objective also for setting up these information centers and authority for recognition and all. Because currently we don't have any mechanism like that.
True. Thank you, Eldo.
Thank you, Aldo, for responding to the queries from my colleagues. I can see another question from one of our research fellows, Sandal Agarwal, and she's saying, how does the quality assurance of skills and qualifications, wait, how is the quality assurance of skills and qualifications made when there are migrated students in the host country? What do you mean by this, Sandal? It's not, I am not able to understand the language properly here. Oh, migrant students. Okay. All right. So, yeah, okay. Suppose a student is migrating. She's having some audio issues. So she's not able to speak. But what she's trying to say, how is quality assurance of skills and qualifications made with regards to migrant students in a host country? Suppose you're migrating from one country to the other in the middle of an academic program or something like that. Is there some kind of process through which uh, you know as part of mutual recognition of academic qualification, is there any process, established process?
Because mutual recognition, one of the major features of mutual recognition agreements is the approval for the credits acquired from universities. And this even the National Education Policy of India also now recommends for this approval of credits, because Indian University, UGC is in the process of developing a framework for that. Because even the Europe's case, there is ECTS, credit system, this approval system, recognition system. If a student is forced to migrate to another country after completing few credits, then of course he or she can take that credit along with, if both countries have entered into an agreement, a mutual recognition agreement, and they can take the credit along with them and substantiate before an authority about the value of the credits acquired from the partner country. And similarly, there is another opportunity. This is not for the students who are migrating from one country to another, because European countries are far ahead, even for students from the refugee communities. Some of the European countries have already agreed to, because the refugee students may not have even a certificate or a transcript or anything, but the institutions, the major stakeholders have agreed to consider these students also without any documents or certificate, transcript or diploma supplements, because there are various methods to accommodate these kind of students. Of course, credit accumulation and recognizing the credits earned from the partner countries, that is possible. And the National Information Center and the authority have a major role in that process.
I think Eldo, they do their own assessment of these students, right? In order to place the students within their system, particularly with regards to candidates, as you're saying, who are refugees, migrants, who may not have even, official diplomas and degrees. I'm sure they do their own assessment of their level of learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And also I know about, a couple of organizations, primarily North America based, ETS and WES, they also do these equivalences, certificates and all these things. I remember this was many years ago when I was going to the US for the first time.
Yeah.
So I had to apply for all these, because we used to get all these marks out of 100 points, from our university, Calcutta University here. So I had to send all these transcripts and everything to ETS to convert it into the credit system that is
Yeah.
acceptable in US universities, which is a 4-point credit system. So how much does it come within a 4-point scale, whether it is 4 out of 4 or 3.5 or 3.6 or something like that. So the ETS and WES is also another organization to do this. So
Yeah.
they can do.
WES has a major role in American universities, of course. And for European higher education area, because they have their own mechanisms. Actually, they have developed, of course, this wonderful mechanisms for sharing knowledge about the partner countries, about the participating countries, because that is critical for the success of mutual MRA agreements.
I have a very, specific question. I'm very intrigued about this. Why this mutual recognition agreement India only have with France and Morocco? Morocco was, of course, a French, has a long colonial connection with France. But, why France and Morocco and no other country? Like, what's the history behind it? Do you have any idea? It's very intriguing.
Yeah, I don't know much about the background for choosing only France and Morocco, but I am aware that more countries are in the pipeline to have agreement with India, and the major one is UK, because already set up a joint task force to enter into an agreement with the UK, because UK wanted to have agreement with India when many years ago, but still there are many issues regarding the recognition of the school system in both the countries. And now there's a joint task force to look into all this. But this particular Morocco and France cases, I am not aware of this thing. But more countries, I am sure that, especially in the context of this Study in India program, more countries, especially from the South Asia and other African countries, may also enter into agreement with India.
I'm
I
just
have
guessing
another-
about this Morocco thing. Probably nothing beyond, say, an over enthusiastic ambassador to the country, or maybe the French ambassador and the Moroccan ambassador, they are close friends, and they're like over a cup of tea, I'm getting this done, so chalo hum bhi kar lete hain, that kind of a stuff. Probably nothing more than that.
Yeah, it's individuals play a major role, because not only because sometimes an alumnus of a particular institution
Yes,
or
yes.
who studied in that particular country, and they play a major role in bringing both countries and both institutions together.
True, true, true. I agree with you. I have one related question. This last question, Eldo, for holding you back. We are over time already, but one last question to you. Now, in the context of NEP, of course, this has been happening even prior to NEP. All kinds of dual degrees and twining programs and joint degree programs. Now, this is of course going to proliferate now, increase much more than it has been happening. Hopefully, that's what it seems like now with the NEP recommendations. So, how do you see mutual recognition of academic qualification playing out in this context with regards to, because now say our university recently entered into agreement with an Australian university where the students are going to get degree in data science, dual degree, degree in data science from an Australian university, at the same time data journalism from our university. So it's going to be a dual degree. Okay. So one from an Australian university and one from our university. Of course, Australia has a very very well laid out national academic qualification framework, as you must know very well, like other countries. India is in the process of creating that, but it's not there yet. Okay, but we don't also have a formal mutual recognition of academic qualification, any kind of agreement like that with Australia. But still, these partnerships are happening. So,
Yeah,
what is your thought on this? And it's not just, IIT Kharagpur has actually several of these, as you must be knowing, with very many different universities and most of the IITs. But particularly, I was looking at IIT Kharagpur has several of these. You know.
Yeah, but these are all institution to institution partnership for dual degree, and all even within the existing the limitations of the regulatory limitations also many especially for research like I'm sure that you are aware of this IIT Bombay Monash and has been IIT Bombay has been partnering with Monash for long and offering joint PhD programs. These kind of, because both institutions are coming together, but of course the countries do not have that kind of agreement. But of course, after these national education policy recommendations, UGC has already taken up this joint twinning and credit transfer, all these kind of, it's already published a draft regulations in that regard. And I'm sure that if there are limitations in entering into agreement with a particular country, these institutions can come forward and tie up with institutions in the Indian institutions can tie up with partner institutions in another country for similar initiatives for offering dual or twinning programs or credit transfer agreements. Because many Australian universities and the US, European institutions, they benefit from short-term programs in India also, because their students can come to India and they can acquire credits from here. That is also a good opportunity. So
You think now it's going to happen both ways? It can happen both ways, not just our students going.
There are limitations, because even before this mutual recognition agreements also, I know many cases in state universities in India, they had to change their acts and regulations to accommodate the foreign students and to offer them credits for short-term programs. They come to India and they study here for a semester, but earlier there were no provisions for offering the short-term credits, because US universities, they want kind of the transcript from the Indian counterparts, then only they will accept that. Because this has been happening for long, even without any mutual recognition agreement. But I am sure that in the coming years, definitely there will be more similar kind of agreements, even without entering into an agreement, a country level agreement, a government to government level agreement. There will be takes for a kind of initiatives from the Indian side, because India, because for Indian degrees and all these things, there are limitations for students, but for short-term programs, I am sure that there will be takes for even from Europe and North America.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Aldo. Any further questions from anybody in this room? No?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we did speak about the credit transfer and how in future that probably the credits from the international university shall be accepted in India and vice versa. But there's also a huge difference in the fee structure as well, which needs to be looked at, because the Indian universities might be offering at, say, a nominal cost in comparison to the international universities. So if we look that in, because now somebody who's paying say $15,000 in US for their education per semester, they would not like to come to our university. Let's, for example, take Jindal as in picture. So we pay 2.5 lakh per, when I used to be in Jindal, I used to pay 2.5 lakh per semester. So there was an issue in between the students from international universities coming to India, because they thought the fee structure was very different here, and the facilities being offered, though the education system, I mean, the quality was good in India as well. Our university does have a very good education system, but the fee structure was also one major issue, which we personally, when I was in the university, I found that because we weren't offered the exchange due to this reason, as to we had students going to the international universities, but not coming to India due to this particular reason. So I was thinking as to what can be done about that as well.
Because if students from Europe or US or Australia are coming to India for short-term programs, uh, I don't think that they are looking only at the fee structure. Of course, many Indian institutions can offer programs even without fee also, because because that kind of agreements are there. Because for us, it's about improving the campus diversity. For them also, because there is a program, because Generation UK program, this UK universities and Indian universities collaborated so that UK students can come to India for attending a 2-month program. It's a but these kind of programs are fully funded by their universities. Means, I mean, foreign universities, the UK universities, they fund for the students for visiting India. And similarly, University of Hyderabad has a study in India program. They pay only a nominal fee to University of Hyderabad. So of course, it's a nominal fee when compared to their fee structure in US or other countries, because fee is not only the key determinant in attracting students from Europe and US, because uh, they have other because Indian universities can offer certain values which other institutions cannot offer, because India is a major market for foreign companies, and also getting some experience in the Indian context, especially in the cultural context and the social milieu that's important for them. That's why they are coming to India even for the short-term courses. And I'm sure that there will be more takers for that. Of course, Indian institutions cannot charge more, but even without charging the foreign students also, because we would also benefit from this kind of initiatives, because mainly the potential to improve campus diversity.
Absolutely. And Prerna, I would like to add to what Eldo said with regards to this. Frankly speaking, I have worked for many years with American students, and particularly, actually, I used to coordinate a lot of these work at the university where I was with regards to American students who used to want to come to India for a semester or 2 semesters. Some of them, they would be literally, they look for real cultural immersion experience also. Many of them would come through fellowships and scholarships through American, there is an American Indian language institute which gives fellowships, so they would even learn Indian language, whether Hindi or maybe a South Indian language or something. They really look for a more socio-cultural immersion experience, frankly speaking. So as Eldo pointed out, so they really look for more diversity aspect. So if a campus appears to them more like their own campus in the US, they might not feel attracted to go there. American students, particularly, as I have seen, they would like to go to a campus which looks much more diverse and different compared to their own campus, where they are located in the US, so that they could get a very different cultural immersion experience. And I have had students who have come to India, American students, for 6 months. Study with not just 3 months, as long as even 6 months, immersion here. They have stayed with host family here in India, And now they are literally doing PhDs in South Asian studies in university like University of Chicago. And they are doing they are literally doing cultural interpretation work back in their own country because of the long-term cultural immersion experience that they gained through their study abroad experience in India.
Yes, ma'am, I understood. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining this session, and especially thank you, Eldo, for sharing your knowledge and expertise in this area. Very, very important topic for all of us at the International Institute of Higher Education. If you would have been physically visiting us here without the COVID situation, we would have offered you some gifts and souvenirs from all of us, thanking you. But now we can only give you a virtual thank you, and hope that someday you're going to really physically visit us in the near future at our campus. And thank you all for joining. And we wrap up this session of Thinking Thursdays. We'll meet again the last Thursday of this month. I think we have another very accomplished guest speaker on 29th, Professor Liz Jackson from the Education University of Hong Kong, who is going to actually speak on her most recent book that she has just published on the politics of educating emotions. So very much focusing on social and emotional learning. She's a philosopher of education. All of you must have already seen the invite. We'll share it again with you. I hope that all of you can join again with us on 29th of Jan. Till then, all of you stay healthy and stay well. Good afternoon. Take care. Thank you, Eldo, once again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.